Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Welcome back to the Aviator Podcast, where we discuss all things related to the world of health, wellness, and rehabilitation. Our focus is on taking our patients and clients to the next level in function and performance. I am your host, Jason Hunter, Director of Clinical Education for Aviator Healthcare Logistics. I have a special guest today, Dr. Michael Brach from Tribe Wellness. Dr. Brach is a graduate of the UT Southwestern Physical Therapy Program in Dallas, Texas. While he works with all populations, Dr. Mike, as he is affectionately called by his patients and clients, has specialized in serving those folks that are living with Parkinson's disease and has utilized a very unique approach. Thank you for joining me as I find out a little bit more about Dr. Mike and Tribe Wellness. All right, we are back. Welcome to Dr. Mike. It is really exciting to have you on the podcast. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate your having me. This is exciting, Jason.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I wanted to tell our listeners that I first learned of you and Tribe Wellness in late 2019 at a TPTA district meeting where you were providing a CEU presentation for the members. This was probably one of my most favorite presentations, not just because, martial arts and Tai Chi have been a big interest of mine, but I love the content and your message at the presentation. So, you not only brought your enthusiasm for what you do with your patients and clients, but you also brought a very sincere desire for the rest of us to be successful and to think outside the box in our approach. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about your story and kind of what has led you to who you are as a physical therapist and how Tribe Wellness came to be.
I don't know how long I don't know how long you got for the podcast, but
Take as long as you like, man.
The short version is this: I worked for a long time in a different career while my wife was getting her PhD, and I really didn't like what I was doing. And I worked for a great company, but I just couldn't stand the world of finance because I wanted to do this. And eventually, some good friends of mine had almost like an intervention, like you see on TV,
Yeah.
where they said, "Hey, man, we're really sick and tired of hearing you complain about your job. Um, what is it you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I've always wanted to be a physical therapist." And they were like, one of them was like, "So what exactly is it going to take to do that?" And so I started going back to school at night and trying to knock out the prereqs. And 3 years later, went to UT Southwestern. But
Nice.
my whole life, I've been a martial artist and an athlete, and as a result, I've always been injured, and I've always
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
in and out of physical therapy. So, I've always wanted to do this, um, but it kind of took a long time to get going. Uh, at the same time, though, I think that was really helpful because it kind of smashed all other delusions of doing anything but this. So when the time came, I was able to dive all in and put everything I got into it. And so, going through clinical training and that kind of thing, I saw, just like everybody sees, that people do great in therapy. They love the time with the therapist. They love the focused attention to their needs. More than anything, they like the result of starting to do something physically, especially for folks who, haven't been very active for a long time.
Right.
And at some point, they meet their goals, or they run out of visits, and it's kind of like, well, what do I do now? And some pretty important people in my life had Parkinson's disease, and if they'd had much of anything in the way of resources at the time, I think the last several years they were alive, things would have gone much better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fortunate in that early on I got to be in a clinic that spent a lot of time with people with Parkinson's. And just before it, just a few years before, I'd read a great story by a guy who I really admire named Freddie Roach. He's a
Mm-hmm.
boxing manager. He's coached Tyson briefly. He's coached Manny Pacquiao for many years. Um, he has Parkinson disease, and in Sports Illustrated, I think it was about 2009, 2010, he mentioned something in there about how there's something to the training that helped manage his symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
and working with his fighters that really made him do better despite Parkinson disease. And so throughout school, I remember talking with various neurologists of how does this work, why does this work, and at the time, Rock Steady wasn't really a big thing. And it's now a pretty big national chain of boxing gyms for people with Parkinson's. But we got to put together a pilot program when I was a student, and I got to just try it out and see if the stuff I used to do training fighters,
Mm-hmm.
if appropriately modified and supervised, um, if that could help people, currently. And I still kind of wanted to do different stuff with PT, and thought maybe someday I'll get around to trying to tie more of my passions into clinical practice. But that pilot program was such a big hit, and things went so well that a few months after, I ran into a couple of folks who were from the pilot study at a Parkinson Foundation event called Moving Day, and one of them just said to me flat out, "Look, Mike, that worked well, and then it ended, and now what do we do?" and
Right.
that kind of put me in a place where I had to realign my principles and my ideals and goals. And after that, things just kind of started falling into place. I worked home health for a little while, and ran group classes out of a church. Um, and then when I got the money to open a clinic, I found a really small clinic totally by luck or by accident, or whatever. Um, and bit by bit, just been reinvesting into it, and trying to make it more successful. So we started with 2 classes a week out of a church, and now currently we got 15 group programs a week, all for people with Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
So we do Tai Chi, which has been heavily researched and validated as being helpful for balance, motor control, and postural instability associated with Parkinson's. We've got 9 boxing classes a week, and then we got a yoga group too. Um, and outside of that too, we get to, for the last 3 years, I've gotten to partner with UT Southwestern to run a research program where the grad students from the DPT program there help me out a couple nights a week, and we just take people for 12-week cohorts to see what non-contact boxing training does to physical impairments with Parkinson's. So hopefully over the next couple months, we'll start getting some papers submitted, because we got a ton of data and we keep kicking around these drafts. But I guess the only other, so we see patients here too. We take Medicare for that. And periodically, probably 3 times a year, maybe 4, depending on the year, I get to do some adaptive kung fu also with a clinic out of Plano that just treats kids with cerebral palsy. It's called 1CP Place, and
I
that's
was I was actually interested in hearing you talk about that because I saw that on your, I believe it was on your website.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a ball with that. So an old classmate of mine from PT school works there, and he's just trying to do whatever he can to give these kids opportunities to be active outside of the clinic. So they do like adaptive dance, they do adaptive basketball and soccer, and um, one of the first programs we did was kung fu, because the lady who owns that clinic is a neurologist, Dr. Jan. She also happens to have cerebral palsy,
Mm-hmm.
and she had tremendous personal experiences in St. Louis with a guy who was a martial arts instructor. So I got to meet with her and James and pitch a program, and I love it because the style of kung fu I grew up doing, it's called Tien Shan Pai. It's a northern style. Um, we just get to modify that for
Mm-hmm.
whatever will challenge the kids, but still try to maintain the heart of the style, which is pretty cool to see. We've gotten some kids to advance along and earn a couple belts. It's a fun thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And talking about, so like, one of the other questions I had for you was, how has Tai Chi and the martial arts shaped your approach? It sounds like it's done a lot to shape it. With with the kids and also with the folks with Parkinson's, what is it about Tai Chi and martial arts? I mean, feel free to get a little technical because you're going to have an audience that they're going to understand some of this stuff. And what is it that makes these modalities effective, would you say?
Well, I think in the most basic sense, exercise induced neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
You get moving, it gets easier to fire neural connections, it's easier to strengthen neural connections, it's easier to um, strengthen movement patterns. And I think a lot of that's just repetition,
Mm-hmm.
but also, in the clinic, you say to somebody, here, do, you know, do, do 10 reverse lunges and watch your hip level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, versus saying to somebody, hey, here's a form, a choreographed sequence of moves, uh, and we're going to do it over and over, one piece at a time, and we're going to start stringing those pieces together. There's just a much greater sense of accomplishment, and I think there's a much greater sense of buy-in because people, when they're learning martial arts, uh, it becomes about the training. The training is the gift in martial arts.
Right.
They're as they're old wise teachers who say things like, well, you know, a belt is for holding your pants up, not for
Yeah.
rank.
Yeah.
Or or the old martial arts joke of how long does it take an average person to earn a black belt? And the answer is, well, average people don't earn black belts.
Yeah.
So
Heard
um,
those, yeah.
so it's really about, at some point in martial arts, you see just the action of doing it is where all these benefits start to kick in. It's where the meditative aspect kicks in. It's where the health benefits kick in. Um, and it's interesting for me because when I got into martial arts, I wanted to do anything but compete. And then
Right.
I started competing. And then I only wanted to compete.
You were hooked.
And at some point from fighting, especially, it became really clear like there's always going to be somebody better,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how good of a day I'm having. And there are days where I've done really well. I've been very fortunate with the training and the teacher I had. I've done very well, but that's not enough for me. Winning the medal. It seemed like after matches where I just absolutely dominated my opponent, I was happy, but I'm still me.
Right. Right.
Matches where I got absolutely destroyed by my opponent, made mistake after mistake, still me. So there's got to be something more to it. So um, for me, that over a period of years, I just came into an absolute love affair with the training, and I just fell in love with teaching other people too, and seeing that light kick on for them of,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, a month ago this was really hard, and now that's easy. This other thing is really hard. And stuff that, like, my teacher taught me of, when he told me, and so my teacher in 2006 said, hey, I'm putting together no, 2007. He said, "Hey, I'm putting together a team to fight at a national championship with the hopes of going to Malaysia in 2009 for a world tournament."
Wow.
And I remember looking at him and thinking, like, is this man on drugs? And he was like, "I want you to be on it." And he just, like so many PTs or like so many teachers or spiritual leaders, he had the ability to see something more in other people and help them to uncover how to bring that out. And so I think when you ask, how does martial arts work for physical therapy or for clients or patients, some of it is just when you don't have the timetable that a third party puts on you for reimbursement,
Hmm.
uh, or when you get people doing stuff that they really enjoy doing. And not everybody loves martial arts, but the people that stick with it do. When you get people doing stuff that they love, it's just so much easier to be consistent, and it's
Absolutely.
easier too to break it down into much more manageable pieces that they can repeat over and over and over and just keep growing and learning. And that's what's interesting about martial arts for me too, because kung fu, as you know, translates to hard work.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
really anything could be kung fu, right? And that's why, at least at Tribe Wellness, we don't just have those programs. We've got a hiking group. Um, we've had a round of a Pilates teacher coming in. We're trying to get some dance classes going for people, because it's less about the the type of exercise in a lot of ways, and it's more about finding something people want to do. Salient is a very big deal. And yet you could say, for a more acute problem, that's a total farce, right? You could say for a more acute problem, when you've got very targeted goals, the type of exercise absolutely is most important, and that's true. But long term, big picture, it's a whole lot more about finding something somebody's going to stick with that lets them challenge themselves.
I absolutely love that. I believe that is key. Connection and value are very important. Um, I love that thought process. I was thinking too about what you were talking about with martial arts. You and I were talking on the phone once, and I said this to a group of clinicians that we were hosting a seminar for Tai Chi and discussing martial arts, because I think sometimes people they get into martial arts and they're like, well, I don't want to learn how to fight. Well, that's not the focus.
Right,
That's a
right.
piece. That's a piece, but martial arts, there's really actually, when you remove the violence from it, which is a very small part of it actually, what you're left with is learning how to overcome your mind, learning how to overcome your emotions, and learning how to overcome your body and train those aspects. And so it's channeled into fighting if you decide to go into fighting. But as we talked about with Kung Fu, it is effort, it is focus on something that improves your skill through hard work at something. This happens to be martial arts movements, which, if you really look at those, you're learning how to biomechanically move correctly and to really stimulate your body and your mind. And so there's a lot of value in that, without having to step into a ring. You can if you'd like, and really take it to the next level if you want. But the movement itself is there's a huge amount of benefit to that. So that's one of the things I loved about it. I didn't, with my martial arts training, I spent time throwing my classmates around and sparring in class, but I didn't go out and do competition. I was more focused on the movement and just my kung fu brothers and sisters and having fun in class, and that was where I was with it. But I loved it. I loved everything you said. I love the workout. I love the challenges. I love the high variability and movement patterns, and I felt like it really just um, stimulated everything. So,
Well, it's
and I
so
found a lot
cool
of
to
value in it.
see, like, see something you just don't think you can do and think, man, that looks awesome. And
Yeah.
then whatever amount of time later to be like, oh my God, I'm doing it.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just it's just a really fun experience. I wish everybody could have some version of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, kind of off of that, my next question for you is, what makes you tick? What is what do you feel your purpose and your passion is? I know we've heard a lot about your passion, already talking about martial arts and creating tribe wellness and your transition from one occupation into obviously something you're passionate about. But what would you say your purpose and passion is?
I think they're all related.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lot of people who think that they can compartmentalize their experiences in life, and maybe they can. I know I can't. Um, so, for me, I really just like and find tremendous joy in helping people do better and helping people to do what my teacher did for me of getting them to see, hey, we're all capable of a heck of a lot more than we think.
Right.
Let's try to bring some of that out. It's just there's nothing like it.
I agree with the not compartmentalizing things. I know for me the things that I am truly connected to and passionate about, they all are interwoven. They fit together like pieces of a puzzle. They create a big picture for me. I don't have just one thing over here and then one thing over there. It's they all feed together. And to me, they create a direction for me. So I totally understand. I love that. Tell us about any future plans you have going on. What's happening at try? Oh, you know what? I wanted to talk to you about how things are going as far as COVID and how you've adjusted
Oh
to
man.
the changes.
Well, I continue to believe that I'm one of the luckiest people
Mm-hmm.
because, um, you know, here at the gym, we try to keep things really approachable, probably to a fault. So for the first few years we were open, it was like, well, here's the suggested amount to pay for class, and if you can't, don't worry about it, and we'll figure it out. Has been the motto, um, and really that led to, perhaps because of cognitive or non-motor impairments associated with Parkinson's, or perhaps because I'm just not that organized sometimes, a lot of people not paying for class. Um, and, that happens, whatever. But fortunately for us, uh, March March 1st, we finally switched over our billing and payments to uh, largely auto pay system.
Uh huh.
So we got a lot of people who weren't paying before to consistently commit to payment, and
Good deal.
then coronavirus really started sweeping the land. So with the COVID thing, it's been odd in that um, a lot of our one-on-one patient visits have really dropped off,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that'll probably change now that Medicare is saying we're okay for telehealth as a profession now,
Mm-hmm.
as of last week, right? So uh, I think given that we're, what's today, May 5th. uh, it's been long enough where I think people are starting to see this isn't going to blow over all that quickly. And I
Right.
think folks from our gang are starting to see maybe I shouldn't wait out physical therapy. Um, because sadly, I suspect that a bunch of the folks I haven't heard from have had a decline in function.
Right.
And
Those are things we're
uh,
concerned about too, for sure. Yeah.
so I think that some of those visits will start coming back in the form of either telehealth or in-person stuff. At first, when people had something that could maybe wait, just because a lot of our gang are high risk, we said, well, maybe wait, um, just because there's no sense in encouraging people to go out, to work on their back pain or something if it's manageable when, in fact, it might be really hard for them to clear any respiratory problems because of Parkinson disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, So the patient side of things has been interesting for therapy, but the good news is, with Zoom and with all these other tools out there, it was pretty easy for us to move classes online. So all of our group programs are taking place online, and um, that's been interesting because I kind of anticipated at first that people wouldn't at all want to do it. One of the non-motor symptoms with Parkinson's, as you know, is increased anxiety, and also just as people get used to a certain setup in life, they're less willing to change and try new stuff. So I thought,
Right.
man, when I tell people we're moving online, this is not going to go well. But
Yeah.
but surprisingly, a lot of folks hopped right into it and embraced it. I think at this point, though, people are starting to get a little tired of not being together. I mean, one of the real benefits of our group is the camaraderie and the fellowship that forms from people who are going through something similar, hanging out together, pushing each other, cracking jokes, all that stuff.
Right.
And we can do some of that online, and that's definitely better than not being able to do it. But I do, when I check my voicemail and when I check my email, I hear from a few different people each day their growing frustration with not seeing each other.
Hmm.
Um, so we're trying to find new ways to get everybody to connect. We've got like a physical activity bingo thing that we started last week. For our hiking group, we're going to do conference calls where people just dial in, and whether they're walking around their house or their neighborhood or on the treadmill or marching in place, they'll at least be able to, chat for 20 or 30 minutes. Um,
That's awesome.
so we're trying new stuff, but it's definitely been wild. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll
I have
see.
I've actually this Thursday I have a virtual Tai Chi class set up via Zoom with one of the communities that we typically see patients in. I've got a just kind of a connection there with someone that lives there and the activities director, and I've done some actual in-person Tai Chi classes when we were, prior to COVID, and so now we're going to be exploring the virtual style, and then just a
Good.
couple of weeks ago, I was actually on a Zoom meeting with them. Again, this connection, this person that I know there, she has organized a wellness call to happen every Wednesday because they have folks that they're not interacting, and depression is a big deal. People are
Yes.
not connecting, and there's a lot of concern about these folks, and so. Of course, you start getting the technology and Zoom, and that scares people too sometimes. And so the activity director has really worked hard to try to help remove barriers and try to make people feel comfortable. So we're going to kind of play with that a little bit and see how that goes. So
I bet they'll
um,
dig it. I
yeah,
do.
I love being. I think it's important that we stay connected with people. We're human beings. We're designed for we're communal creatures. We're not designed to be alone all the time, and so
Right.
this has been very challenging for a lot of people I know. So it's I think it's awesome to be able to stay connected and find different ways to be creative in that. All right, so I got a few more questions for you. And they're real quick though.
Yeah.
Okay,
Come on,
so
man. Come on.
I'm going to hit you with a question,
Yeah.
and I want to hear your quick answer on it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. What or who would you say has had the greatest impact on your physical therapy practice?
What or who? So for sure, my martial arts teacher, Martin Ware, who is
Awesome.
not a physical therapist, but did a lot for me. And then I think outside of that, one of my clinical instructors, Chris Rogers. He's a guy at Baylor. He's a chiropractor and a PT. Just a heck of a guy.
No, Mike Lucido. He works a lot with Mike Lucido.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
Lucido's the man. So yeah, I think some good people.
I've been blessed to be around some awesome people in my career, so I'm very, very blessed for that. All right, next question. What is your favorite book?
Yeah, I saw that on your list. That's tough. Um, I'll give you a few, okay?
Okay.
Um, so personal, spiritual stuff, Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now.
Okay.
Uh, for fun and motivation, especially in our job, Mitch Albom, Tuesdays with Maury.
Nice. Nice.
Um, Another one, Chris Rogers actually turned me on to. It's an incredibly long series, but it's fun. Uh, Stephen King wrote a series called The Dark Tower, and it's just wild. It ties almost all of his books together.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I'll have to check
Yeah.
that out. All right. So, outside of physical therapy, what is another passion of yours?
Well, for sure, martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
For my own personal development, I've been meeting with a teacher here in Dallas for the last couple years every Thursday morning, and I've been learning Chen style from him.
Interesting.
Um,
Chen is challenging.
it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Um, Other than that, hanging with my dog Junior.
Cool. I've seen Junior in the videos.
Yeah, Junior's kind of our mascot. He greets everybody at the door, and he's a sweet, sweet little guy.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. So, final question. What is your favorite music group?
Again, that's tough, but and I'm probably showing a little too much here, Jason.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Q-Tip and Fife Dog were often attributed with creating hip hop through a group called A Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, I've heard of a tribe called Quest. Interesting. I had recently one of my friends sent out one of those wonderful Facebook challenges to list 10 albums that, have, you know, uh, just changed how you looked at life or were important during different points in your life. And I love music. I grew up in a musical family, and it was hard to find just 10.
I believe that. Yeah. Yeah, that's like the classic top 5 MCs discussion people have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You start trading notes with people, and it's like, oh, how could I leave this person out? I can't believe it. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
too much.
All right, man. Well, there you have it. Dr. Michael Brach of Tribe Wellness. So tell us where anybody can find out more about you and the great things that you are doing at Tribe Wellness. How can they connect with you?
Oh yeah, we've got an intern now, the world's greatest intern. Her name is Nee, and she has helped out tremendously. So we're super official now. We've got a website, tribewellness.org. We've got an Instagram page at Tribe Wellness LLC. We've got a Facebook page. We've even got a low budget YouTube channel. So,
Nice. Love it. Love it.
we've got it all covered, complete with videos shot on my cell phone.
Awesome.
So,
I love it, man.
exciting stuff here.
Well, man, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like I think you're doing fantastic work, and I love the purpose and the passion that you have for what you do. And so I just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing for the community.
Well, thank
Sincerely.
you. Stuff like this and chatting with you, it always gets me fired up to do more. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. And we'll hopefully chat again soon.
Sounds good, Jason.
All right. Thanks, Mike. As I am thinking back about this podcast with Dr. Mike, there's a lot of great content to consider. He is doing such wonderful things for the community. But there are 3 main ideas that resonated with me during this discussion. The first one, there is an incredible impact when you have someone that is able to see the best in you and help you bring that forward, someone that will invest time to see to your success. Dr. Mike's martial arts instructor was that mentor, that person that saw the potential and helped Dr. Mike realize it. Next, purpose and passion are at the heart of great things. Dr. Mike realized he was passionate about a different path, and there was a different purpose for him. So, with being surrounded by great people, helping him to see and move toward that purpose, he has changed the direction of his life and is aligned more with his purpose and passion. With that, because of his purpose and passion, Dr. Mike is now investing in others, as was once done for him. As he has changed the path of his life toward his purpose, he is now doing the same for others. One final thought. Help others achieve their dreams, and you will achieve yours. Les Brown.